Blaine, what's the OTC lifestyle like in the US when particularly for the bobsledders?
We lived on campus. So the site that I lived at was up in Lake Placid, which is like upstate New York. And we had our dorm rooms, we had a cafeteria, we had the indoor weight room, basketball court with an indoor track there. We had the push track. So everything we needed was on site at that facility. Like if you didn't want to, you could never leave the facility and you could just train, eat, sleep, do whatever you want. And then we also have an offsite ice house, which is going to be very similar to what we would do on like race days type pushing. So like throughout the week, let's say like a normal training day, usually everyone get up, meet in the cafeteria, we'd have breakfast. First session is going to be either sprinting or pushing, or sometimes a combination of both. So that would probably be about 60 to 90 minutes where you're just doing reps and kind of getting your speed work done and working on some things when it comes to pushing a sled. And then you have probably a 4 hour break from the time that that session ends until we get into the weight room where guys would go into town, hang out. They could stay at the place, have food, like whatever they do, just kind of kill time for a few hours. And then we'd get back in the weight room. We would try to, even if we're not doing the same stuff in the weight room, like we would make it a point where everyone is going to train at 2 o'clock or at 3 o'clock, and we're all going to be in there at the same time, which was a really cool thing because it just helped. Like when you train with a group of guys, especially at that level, those training sessions are just that much more fun. You got the music bumping, some dudes are maxing out, or some guys aren't. It's a great atmosphere. And then once the session was over, you just have the rest of the day to kind of chill and do whatever you want. So we have a recovery center there too. So we had like all on-site medical staff. So hot tubs, cold tubs, massages, any type of therapy that you might need, saunas, all that kind of stuff was on site. So usually people would take advantage of that after their second session or on rest days. And that would be basically every day in and out, except for like rest days. We would just go into town, grab coffees, hang out, do whatever. There's also a lake there, so we could go down to the lake and just hang out. And so it's a small town, but it was a lot of fun staying there.
Did you avail of any of the recovery modalities on a regular basis? Anything in particular stand out to you?
Um, it depended on where we are at in the off season. So early off season, I don't like to do any of the recovery stuff. My thought process of it is I don't want to speed up my body's recovery adaptation to my training any more than I need to. So early off season, I would just train and my recovery would just be sleep, eat, hang out, let the body kind of rest and relax. And then as I got closer to like any type of, if we were doing some sort of testing or some sort of competition, then for like the month prior to that, I would start adding in some like contrast bath with the cold tub and the hot tub, or I might do sauna sessions on my rest days, get a massage, something like that, just to try to like speed up that recovery process so I can be better for whatever competition or testing event that we might have going on. But I would say mostly would use the sauna, do some contrast bath, and then every once in a while, if I felt like I needed it, I would get a massage.
And Blaine, what did that kind of yearly plan look like? How often are you in off season? How often are you in season or peaking throughout the year?
So off season starts pretty much in May. So the season usually ends in February. Everyone takes, a month or so to just like maybe they're training a little bit, but nobody's doing anything like intense. And then once like April, May comes around, then you start getting back into like introducing your speed work again, doing some more like specific stuff in the weight room, even though it's still very general. And then our first test throughout the year is usually end of August. So you'd have a good 3 months to kind of build up for push champs, is what we called it. So you do individual push champs where you would just push the sled by yourself from a couple different positions. They would get some times on you and then be like, okay, this person's here, this person's there. And then based on what you did individually, they would pair you up with some people and you would do combo push champs where then you'd have a group of three guys on the sled pushing together. So then they're trying to figure out, all right, what are the teams going to look like this year? And then based off those performances, you would go into like making the team. So they would do selections based off of that. So that would be August. And then from August until October is kind of like your second preseason, where we're not pushing, we're not doing anything. They've named the team, so we know who our crews are. So now most of our speed and push training is going to be with your crew, doing more combo stuff, working on timing and loads and everything. And then your weight room stuff, you're kind of peaking towards October, which is when the beginning of the season is going to start. And then in season is going to be end of October through February, March, depending on the exact season. And your in season stuff, you're just trying to have like as little of a drop as possible with kind of mini peaks on certain race days where you're going to be able to go out and kind of perform. So most people didn't race every single week. So let's say I knew I was going to have a week off. I might train a little bit harder that week to prepare myself for the following week, or vice versa, or whatever it might be. And you kind of just like your normal in-season type stuff where you've got like planned events where you're going to peak, and then when world champs would show up, that's when you want your best performance to be, and that would be like your final peak for the season.
And Blaine, are these all international level competitions if you're doing kind of two every month, or what's the kind of level of competition
It is
prior to
international.
Worlds? Okay.
Once the season starts, everything's an international competition. So you compete once a week, and then we would get about a 10-day to 2-week break during Christmas and New Year's, and then you would start again middle of January and have your last probably 4 races. So there's about 10 races in a season. You'd get about 5 or 6 prior to the Christmas break, and then you get about 4 to 5 after the Christmas break. And but like I said, you're racing every single week, and you'll race in Germany, and then maybe you got to race in Austria, and then we got to go to Switzerland. And so everyone goes on the same circuit. They're all international races, and some of them are in North America, and they just kind of go back and forth.
Nice.
Blaine, how did the kind of bobsled lifestyle end? What kind of catalyzed that?
So Olympic year 2022, we ended up trying to qualify 3 sleds. So it's the same thing with like I believe in like weightlifting, a country can only send 3 lifters for the men, and or like for the women, they can't just send everyone that's good. So in bobsled it's the same thing, except for they only allow 3 countries to send 3 sleds. And we believe that we had a good enough opportunity to send those 3 sleds. So that was our whole goal for that season. And we made certain decisions to kind of put crews together to try to make that happen as best as possible. The crew that I was on ended up not being able to have the best season in order to get enough points to qualify, even though at the end of the season, I think we were still ranked 14th in the world, and the top 30 get to go. But us being at 14th was just enough outside of that 3rd sled qualification, where there were 3 other countries that had 3 sleds in the top 13. So we didn't quite get that 3rd spot. So my season ended once the regular season was over. Everyone went off to the Olympics. I had only planned on doing 4 years anyways, and that was my 4th year. So I'd just been like, the goal was to try to make it to the Olympics. It didn't happen, but the plan was to always retire after that year was over.